Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Whether or Not. Brian Karstens, how are you doing today?
I'm doing pretty well. How about yourself?
Doing well. It's already, Thursday?
Thursday, yep. Heading into a holiday weekend.
Holiday weekend. Funny how these things do sneak up on us, isn't it?
How did it get to be the end of summer?
Wow. Another one thrown in,
They go by fast. They always do.
I always say once you hit the 4th of July, summer just goes by quickly.
Yeah, absolutely. So, but we're going to enjoy, hopefully, a nice weekend at times. Now, we've got a number of topics to get to because for some of you, this is going to be a wet weekend. And for others, you might be sitting and watching the rain for a while. So we've got some homework to do here, Scott.
As you mentioned, Labor Day weekend is getting close, and we'll watch our chances for showers and thunderstorms, and we'll also watch for more cold fronts coming, I would say, in the next week to week and a half. And it's always nice to talk about the weather pattern, and we'll finish up with that. So for today, we'll watch for developing thunderstorms in western South Dakota. Eastern, southeastern KELOLAND should stay dry throughout much of the day. I know earlier models were trying to bring in these isolated showers and thunderstorms in southeastern South Dakota. You see that at around 8 o'clock this evening, maybe near Madison, down towards Sioux Falls. And remember yesterday, we had a couple of scattered thunderstorms show up here across southwestern Minnesota. So the model did a pretty good job on picking up on those. We'll see if those do materialize across southeastern KELOLAND later this evening. And then for the overnight hours, I think western South Dakota will have our best chance for the showers and thunderstorms. Our forecast for the rest of today, mostly sunny to partly cloudy in the east, highs near 80, western South Dakota with that chance for rain. Stay with us. There's plenty to talk about on this latest edition of Whether or Not. Welcome back to Whether or Not. It's time to talk about the holiday weekend ahead, Brian. And I think you said you had camping plans, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep, the girls are camping with their troop here for American Heritage Girls, so they've got plans there, and then Dad gets kind of part of that, so, I'll be out there, I'm sure, some of the time. Not sure if I'll actually do the overnight part.
Okay, stay overnight outside.
Yeah, I do a lot of that with the boys, too, as we camp. Went to Colorado, did a big camping trip. Of course, it rains, when you go camping.
And rain's in the forecast this weekend. It's just a matter of timing and placement.
Maybe I should clarify, when you go camping with me. Now, people that know me know that very well. Hopefully, though, we can find a compromise in some of this. It's not like it's going to be raining all the time. And it really depends on, there are a lot of factors going into this. You're going to set us up here into the perspective.
Yeah, this is what the one of the model runs showing yesterday with that heavier rain slated near Huron areas to the south and to the southeast, just to the west of Sioux Falls. It was showing the amounts will easily be over an inch. So keep in mind this yellow area with the highest rainfall amounts when we get to the next graphic. And, of course, highlighted in darker green, you'll probably get a couple of areas approaching an inch. And, of course, some spots more, some spots less. That's just an overall average of what the models are thinking. So that's a look at yesterday. Here's a look at today. It's moved it a little farther to the south. In fact, northeastern South Dakota will still go with chances of rain, but you don't see any color there from Aberdeen, Watertown, Marshall. Not to say it won't rain, but we'll just go with more widely scattered chances across those areas of KELOLAND. I think western South Dakota, pretty good bet to see the rain, but the model run now has shifted the heaviest rain to the south, from winter areas to the east to include Yankton and throughout eastern Nebraska. So we're starting to see the model data move a little bit. As you pointed out a couple of things this morning, we have high pressure coming in from the north that will battle this slow-moving low-pressure system that we've been talking about for the past couple of days.
Yep, that's going to hold the keys. That's what it really boils down to. So it's important on a show like this, we can explain a little more perspective behind what it's not just a chance of rain this weekend, and that's that. Mm-hmm. It's going to be, okay, well, we're going to start with that narrative, but then we also have to keep in mind that because of the nature of this low-pressure center, wobbling around, use that word intentionally.
Wobbling, okay.
Yep. On our graphic system, this second source over here too, Scott, this is what we talked about earlier, and I'll zoom up here so you can see on the mapping that we've got this area right up in here over southern Canada up toward Winnipeg. Now, that is a break-off piece of high pressure. There's actually some ridging in the jet stream. Now, see, your main polar jet is way up here. I mean,
I see snow up there, too.
Oh, yeah. Do you see that? Well, that's interesting weather, but that's not concerning us right now. What we are seeing is we're basically sitting in these very weak steering patterns in the jet stream. So that's why I use that word wobble. This thing doesn't really have a lot to navigate it as it moves into KELOLAND. So it'll kind of settle into the west and central South Dakota areas, and then it will be basically at the mercy of how this feature to our north interacts. Now, if that descends down into northern Minnesota like it shows here, then that's going to put pressure on this. It's going to put a stop sign. It says, nope, can't go any farther than that, and that's where we have to evaluate. Is that line going to be here, or is it going to be here, or even a little farther east? We don't know yet. We're not 100% sure on that, but the trend, as you pointed out, is to slow it down and march it a little bit farther west. We'll keep watching it. We've got today. We got tomorrow. So, you're packing your things out for all your outdoor activities this weekend. Keep them. If you're in the east, if you're west and central, you're going to have to deal with this system at segments. There's just probably no way of avoiding that.
This is a look at Saturday, showing the widespread rain in western and south central South Dakota during the afternoon, and maybe some spotty activity across eastern South Dakota, Minnesota, and Iowa. But the bulk of the rain probably end up falling from, we'll say, northwestern South Dakota into south central South Dakota, eventually into Nebraska. Let's go ahead and check on Sunday. Sunday's forecast. Now, notice it is trying to move it a little farther to the east, and that's what we were thinking yesterday as we were looking at things. It was a slow-moving system. It continues to be slow-moving. We'll see how much of this actually moves into eastern South Dakota for Sunday, but I do think that will be the higher chance that we have as we go through the holiday weekend. And it's even trying to sneak some of this into the north, and it's interesting to see. Those are temperatures that the model thinks are in the 80s, where we have that orange color into North Dakota. And notice how those 80s do sneak into northeastern KELOLAND. That's a sign of that drier air trying to make its way through those areas of northeastern KELOLAND to help them warm. So this may be a little overdone when we are looking at these rain chances for Sunday afternoon. Keep in mind, we'll just go with those widely scattered chances. Now, Monday, I put an extra graphic in here for you, Brian. This is something that you were talking about during the morning. This low-pressure system.
I like your graphic.
It's losing its power,
It
right?
is. Yep, the battery's draining.
So by the time we get into Monday, there may be some isolated showers around, but with this slow-moving system, it's losing its energy. And more or less, it just falls apart. It doesn't really leave. It just falls apart.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. And so with that in mind, so that's how we park our forecast into Labor Day, just a couple of those areas of rain, that whatever's left over by that point. So we'll keep watching to see the pacing of that decrease. And then it's interesting because by the time you get past the weekend, then we are going to see a bigger front eventually get here.
Yes.
The timing on that, too, though, is still subject to some debate. Alice, we were talking yesterday all about that, how some colder air is trying to move into the northern plains again.
I want to get your take on this. This is a look at the Canadian model. Is this something that you were able to look at this morning? I think it does a great job in what you just explained with that ridge, that high-pressure system trying to move in across northern Minnesota. Because what we're looking at here, the 700 millibar relative humidity, and that's dry air in the Minnesota. This is Sunday morning. This is the 12-0 for Sunday morning. Watch what happens as we go through time. Notice how that drier air moves across into northeastern South Dakota, and that could be a sign that it's trying to get rid of that rain too. So this is the Canadian model. Let's go ahead and bring up our total precipitation during this time too. You can see that it does have that heavier rain, northwestern South Dakota. And again, the trend is to push that into south central South Dakota into eventually eastern Nebraska. But it keeps a lot of the lighter rains here into northeastern South Dakota. And that's a good sign of what Brian just described with that high-pressure system and the higher layers of the atmosphere trying to push everything a little bit farther to the south. So that's the Canadian run from this morning. So I think that kind of went hand in hand to what you were showing as well, with bringing in maybe a lesser of a chance to seeing rain, especially in the northeastern South Dakota, which I think they'll be okay with.
Oh, if anybody needs to dry out, it's that northeastern area. They've had a lot of heavy rainstorms this summer. The south central and the southwest, it'll soak that all up. No question about it.
Yeah, so they can use that rain across that area. So I found the Canadian run to be an interesting one to look at this morning. It's one we don't usually talk about, though we do like to talk about it when we're talking cold air.
Yep, we do. And it's our source region, isn't it, to the north. So the broader pattern is suggesting that, yes, we're going to deal with some rain this weekend at times. So just stay plugged in on the weather. We're going to keep our conversation going here tomorrow, of course, and then also online, too. Our Storm Center updates are a great resource. I like to put special products in there that kind of spin off of what we've talked about on television, because if you're only able to catch so much of our television programming, you can always go online and then you're able to see some additional resources. And then now with this program,
right,
we're able
all kinds of resources we're throwing into this one.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's just more of an extension of what we talk about behind the scenes a little bit.
And some of the things that we're not able to show as well on air. We're
Right.
able to bring in some products there. Oh, Brian, you mentioned stronger, maybe more cold fronts on the way. That is something we'll talk about when we come back. You're watching the latest edition of Weather or Not. All right, Brian, it's time to talk about more cold air.
More cold air. That's an interesting subject.
Well, let's see what happens.
I
But
thought it's still summer, right?
yeah, it is. But, we're going in the fall. Labor Day's on Monday. We're going in the fall. We'll see cold front come through later next week. Mm-hmm. And then there might be another one a week after that.
Right. So it's a series of fronts. And the devil's in the details, though, as we try to get into where those placements are on the timeline. You've got a couple of things here to share.
Yeah, we'll watch the next one come through late in the week for next week. And this is something I showed yesterday. And however you want to describe this here, we'll be well below average, cooler, cold, chilly. Temperatures, so probably, some of the latest runs are suggesting numbers only in the 60s for highs in eastern South Dakota. Overnight lows, we'll have to watch those. Those have been going up and down, depending on what computer run you look at. I saw information suggesting that we can see temperatures as low as, say, the 30s for overnight lows, and some models have slowly tried to warm that right now and delaying some of that cold air. But any way you look at it, I think late in the week we will have another hit of some cold air. Now, we will warm. It won't stay cold. You can see how the model's trying to warm us as we get into the new work week. That's September 8th on Monday. And then shortly after that, here comes another one. Depending on the timing of it, it looks like it may end up being Wednesday, September 10th, and looks like that colder air will continue into September 11th. So we are watching the series of fronts moving through, and with that, we'll have to watch for shower and thunderstorm chances as we do watch these fronts make their way in from the north and northwest. All depends on how much moisture is available. So here's our pattern as we go through the weekend. That low pressure system right on the border of South Dakota and Nebraska, compared to high trying to sneak in here from northern Minnesota. They'll do battle this weekend. That's something we just talked about. And there's that first hit of cold air as we hit the later part of next week. You see how that makes its way over toward the Great Lakes. Slowly warm after that, ahead of the next front that moves through as we get into maybe the 10th or the 11th of September. I mentioned, too, that, we'll also watch these chances for rain as those will come and go as these temperatures warm and cool. And as we take a look at the 10-day, not the 10-day, but the 14-day precipitation outlook, a lot of that is weighted toward what's going on this weekend. And then we do get breaks from time to time, but notice how that does start to fill in as we get into maybe the second week of that 14-day forecast. That's a look at the rain. And Brian, since it's, September, will be September shortly, and showing this too, snowfall outlook for the next 14 days.
Slowly seeing a little bit there, Wyoming.
Slowly trying to fill in across Wyoming, into Montana, maybe even Colorado can get some light snows. Of course, that's the mountain ranges there. Nothing for us. Earlier in the week, it showed maybe that 5% chance, but that's all it was, Brian. Just that 5% chance for something to move through the hills, and that can still change depending on how much moisture's around as that colder air comes in.
Oh, yeah. A lot of these things are still on the move. One little piece of information, too, that as we kind of talk about that colder or cooler air moving in, isn't it interesting when you look, and I know on my graphics machine, I've got the actual temperature anomaly plotted here. This is a product that looks just at, how far above or below normal we are. Do you notice how much of Canada, relative to average, look how warm it is? And this is how the forecast starts off. So you have to remember when you watch weather maps, and if I have a conversation about the jet stream, remember we talked about that here a few minutes ago, how all the stronger winds in the mid to upper parts of the atmosphere are all shifted well to the north. And that's because that's where the temperature contrast is. That's how the jet stream, that's why we have a jet stream in the first place, is how the differing areas of the earth heat and cool. And so when you see that contrast like that, the relatively warm weather in Canada, and then basically that's shifting all of those, the polarly flow, or the polar jet as we call it, way to the north. But it does break down, and it does show that shot that you just talked about there by middle of next week. So that's that dissension there. And then there's this too. Now, this is just
It's
the
like
AI.
a 1-2 punch there on the AI.
Correct. Mm-hmm. And it's going back and forth. I'm expecting that. But it's interesting to observe that came in as, okay, well, if we get the cooler air, say Thursday, just pick a day, maybe there's another second round of that coming in. And we've seen that before, where you'll get one front and then you get a second one. Now, let's put that aside for a moment. Look at that. See, we go back to the orange and the red colors.
Mm-hmm. Quick warm-up.
Sounds like September. It goes back and forth, doesn't it? And that's the change of the season. And then you get another batch of cool weather in the Canadian prairies, and that goes right with your theme there. Some of that might try to drop south at different points. So we get to just kind of watch that in the background. A lot of times, too, when it is a northwest flow pattern like that, it tends to be a little drier. I was a little curious about this. Here's the 15-day anomaly map. Okay, so this shows you where we're above and below normal for precipitation. We've got some of that. A lot of that's actually driven by this weekend's rain in South Dakota. But you can see Texas is a little wetter. But there's some big stretches now from Canada into the Great Lakes that tend to be a little drier. So if it's just dominant northwest flow, that appears to make sense. I don't think it's an overly wet pattern for us. But, each front will give us, I'm sure, a few things to talk about.
And that's the anomaly. That's looking at the difference when you look at the climate average. So a lot of that, again, is weighted to what's happening this weekend in western, south central, parts, we'll say, of southeastern KELOLAND with our rain for this coming weekend. Otherwise, as you mentioned, northwest flow, kind of hard to get moisture with it, kind of has to bring its own moisture at times. So it may be a little limited until we see more waffling back and forth. Toward maybe the second week of September, we can start to see better chances, I would think, of bringing in some rain.
Yep, and no major trough in the western part of the United States either on any of this. You can see there's one low sitting off of Seattle.
And that's one that's been showing up there all week. Mm-hmm. I think I've highlighted that many of these days except for today. I didn't highlight that western low.
Yeah, but at the very end of that animation, tries to push in maybe some troughing in the Pacific Northwest, but no, there's nothing at all in there that's of any sustainability. So if we had a big trough out here across, on the west coast of the country, well, then I would be thinking, yeah, we've got a lot more going on, because this area here, that's where we watch for big troughs. If we're looking at, storm action in the middle section of the country, that would actually bring back the Gulf moisture. That's also kind of missing here, Scott. We haven't mentioned that today a whole bunch, but could we, are we going to see any more of that Gulf moisture returning? And maybe bits and pieces of it, but getting back to a 70-degree dew point might be a little challenging.
Oh, yeah. I don't think we'll see that anytime soon. We'll have air temperatures in the 70s, maybe even stuck in the 60s for this weekend with a lot of cloud cover and rain in western and south central South Dakota. So No troughing expected across the western United States over the next couple of weeks. So no big storm systems are expected to move through. And you're looking at dew point temperatures right now.
I am, yeah. I was just curious on that. There's next week. Okay, so yeah, with the rain chance going into the early part of the week, we got some 60-degree dew points. Mm-hmm. But look at this. Once that front gets in here, that Wednesday of next week, that's low. You see those 20s for dew points?
Yeah.
Now, that should also be a clue about those overnight lows. I'm not saying that's where the lows are going to be, but it makes our theoretical bottom lower.
Easier for us to cool off when we get those low dew point temperatures.
Yeah. It definitely does. And so, yeah, that's how it finishes up. In fact, this is actually even the second shot right there. There's a lot of just, I would describe that as definitely cool, crisp Canadian air at times. And then when it does warm up, it'll still feel pretty pleasant. So for some of you, you're going to love this weather.
Oh, yeah. I'm looking forward to it. I'm already looking forward to it.
I'm a fan. I have to admit
I did turn the air conditioner back on yesterday.
We did too. It's funny how, it's getting just a little warm, just enough where it can kick on for just a little bit. That's so funny, though. And then I even opened up the windows and I heard, well, maybe we should shut those and turn the air back on. But, here's the deal is even overnight, though, there's nothing in this forecast that's overly warm at night. Even 60s are pretty doable. So take it in. Hopefully you can take advantage of the nice weather at times and then be prepared for some rain chances when they occur.
We're about done, Brian, but I do want to bring this up. This is a look at a snowfall forecast for the next 45 days. So this is going out about a month and a half, right?
45.
Isn't it? I think it's 45. You got to go all the way through the month of September. And then it starts to show at least some hints of bringing in maybe some snow. That takes us out to October, maybe starting around the 8th of October.
As long as we've worked here, here's the thing. It's possible. I remember the year, when was that? 1999, October. I want to say it was either the 1st or the 2nd.
I think it was the 1st.
Yeah, I think
2
it was
inches.
2. I was at the map room at Iowa State University Meteorological Lab, and I was looking at Sioux Falls, South Dakota. This was before I'd moved here, and thought, wow, there's like a few inches of heavy wet snow in Sioux Falls. And you were here at that time. Yeah. You remember looking at it.
I should remember, but maybe I've been here too long that I'm losing that
we have the video proof. I know I have
We'll have to look for it.
Yeah, so that just gets us thinking, well, it can snow, right?
Yeah.
And the history books.
The second week of October, it was pointing to that.
Yeah. So just for fun, but let's say.
It's always just, I shouldn't say it's always just for fun.
45 days out. Yeah, we're just giving you something.
We'll continue to watch it, right? As we always do.
That's correct.
Well, thank you for joining us on this latest edition of Whether or Not. Have yourself a great day.